Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline. My guest this evening is Mr. Nalaka Gunawardene, who is a science writer and also a journalist. And he is nowadays, with a lot of experience, an independent media analyst. Very good evening to you, Mr. Gunawardene. Welcome to Newsline.
Good evening, Faraz. Good evening.
Now, Sri Lanka, the people who sort of watch these things, they're up in arms about a couple of matters. One is the anti-terrorist bill, and the other is this online safety bill. So, Nalaka, does Sri Lanka need an online safety bill?
Sri Lanka needs to ensure online safety for all people who use the internet, who use digital devices. No argument. But the online safety bill, in my view, is totally the wrong response to a real problem.
And what is the real problem?
The real problem is when so many millions, billions enter and move around online in virtual space, a relative few, misuse that space, misuse those technologies fraudulently, for abuse, for harassment and so on. These are well documented, and these have been increasing as the user base also increases in number. So, we need to do something, we need to respond to ensure that the web is a safe place for everyone who goes there.
Okay, so what do you say then what is the government doing wrong in terms of this bill?
Right. So, the online safety bill says that it wants to create or ensure online safety. But when we look at it, what it does is actually it tries to undermine and restrict freedom of expression that has been guaranteed by our constitution under Article 14. And it also tries to create a whole new entity called the Online Safety Commission, which will take away some of the judicial powers and vest those powers in the hands of 5 individuals who are going to be deciding what's true or false for all 22 million citizens in Sri Lanka. That's at the heart of this bill, and that's the problem with it. 5 men and women chosen by the executive president will have the authority, the monopoly over what's true and false.
So that sounds terribly 5-sided or one-sided, because who are these?
Absolutely.
Who are these
Absolutely.
to discuss what the truth or not is? I mean, that at the end of the day, that should be down to some sort of judicial process.
Exactly. And even in a judicial process, everyone who's charged with an offense gets to defend himself or herself, gets to make arguments, and both sides will present their case, and through a considered, measured process only a judge will arrive at a decision. Here, entirely on a one-sided basis, the commission, as currently formulated in the draft bill, will have the power to decide something is wrong, and therefore it should be taken down from whatever online space where it has been published. And the other point to make here for us is that this is not just limited to social media. The bill says online spaces. So, it could be e-commerce platforms, it could be media houses that publish their content on YouTube or newspaper websites. All and other content that is online is covered.
So it's all encompassing, and therefore the real worries. But you know, there's that bit in the preamble about, it says that this online safety bill is designed to stop the publication of certain statements of fact. Surely that must be wrongly written.
I think there are many problems of drafting in this, quite apart from the fundamental problems or premises. In the bill, the last or the penultimate section gives definitions. So when it comes to false statement, it says, if I could pick it out from the bill, false statement means a statement that is known or believed by its maker to be incorrect or untrue and is made especially with the intent to deceive or mislead, but does not include a caution, an opinion or imputation made in good faith. This is the definition. Who decides if a statement was made in good faith or not? We don't know. Maybe it's that 5% commission. And who decides, again I come back to the main argument, who decides something is true or false? It's entirely and just the commission. So we have huge problems with this monopolization of truth in a few individuals.
So is it, is what you're saying, is it overly broad, is it?
Penalties or the offences in this bill are definitely overbroad. And the terminology used is vague. We have no way of getting clarity even from a whole lot of definitions given at the end. Let me cite one or two examples. So from section 12 to section 25 in the bill, that's where the offences are listed. 14 offences are listed, any one of which could trigger a reaction from the commission.
I see.
I mean, there are 2 or 3 among these 14 that I think everyone will or everyone can agree upon. For example, section 13 says contempt of court. Any online statement, any online communication of false statement amounting to contempt of court will be an offence under this. I think that is understood. But there is already a separate bill that was released a few weeks ago in June that plans to make an entire dedicated contempt of court law in this country. So why do we need another provision here? It's not clear. And if you look at another that is fairly acceptable, that is cheating, section 18. Cheating, yes, online scams are increasing, people get defrauded by these scams. So it is, on the face of it, it is good, but the 2007 Computer Crimes Act has already covered this. Those who carry out online scams can be prosecuted, they have been prosecuted under the Computer Crimes Act. And then there is section 23 using the online spaces for child abuse that commits or aids and abets an act which constitutes, as defined in our law, child abuse or exploitation. Again, I think it's every thinking person will agree that's a problem that needs to be tackled, and it is being tackled by several sections in the penal code. This is actually listed in the online safety bill, and the penal code and other laws are already being used effectively to address these crimes. So my view is that contempt of court, fraud and protecting children or dealing with these three are included here, perhaps as a ruse, perhaps to complicate or confuse. The real crux of the matter is the few offences relating to actual expressions online, primarily social media, where depending on the Commission's determination whether something is true or false, there can be a whole set of offences that can be applied.
So, Nalaka, what the government, obviously they appear to have a majority in Parliament. Have they been discussing this with the stakeholders, with the various representative groups? What are they? How transparent has been the process?
Not transparent at all. The bill was gazetted in mid-September. The cabinet decision about this bill was announced on the 4th of September. The bill itself came out on the 15th of September. Until then, so nobody outside the Ministry of Public Security and the Ministry of Justice had heard of it. For example, the Media Ministry, which is one would say the line ministry for this subject, was totally unaware of it. They had not seen the bill, they had not commented on it. And certainly the other stakeholders, the human rights community, the ICT tech industry, and the mass media itself, and various media rights organizations, nobody had been consulted, nobody had seen it. So this was an unconsultative process so far. However, last week on Friday, the Minister of Public Security had a meeting with a few of us. I was one of them, and there he acknowledged that the process thus far has not been consultative, and he committed to making it consultative going forward now onward. But the thing is, it's been now presented in Parliament, and there is a 14-day window for people to file petitions in Supreme Court challenging it. That period, we are in the middle of that period. Beyond that, again, it's now a bit of a time-bound process. So we have to wait and see how much time there is for consultations and how real wide-ranging consultations can take place.
As somebody in the media and who's been, you're an independent media analyst as well to boot, how critical or at which juncture are we? How steep is this very sort of critical path that Sri Lanka is going down towards, or it appears to be going down?
That's a really good question. Now, this bill cannot be taken in isolation. It needs to be taken up along with other various bills that have been brought up, gazetted, or now, for example, we had the Broadcast Regulatory Commission, the Broadcast Regulatory Bill, which was not gazetted. Draft was released, and it was heavily criticized with good reason, and then we haven't heard anything further about it. But we have had the Anti-Terrorism Act and other act in the recent past, and also the fact that even a perfect law falters in our country for us in its implementation because of selective enforcement, because the law enforcement agencies lack the capacity and the motivation to do the right thing, especially in a very technical subject like this. We are talking about the digital technology, the online spaces, which is beyond the realm of familiarity for most of our police and prosecutors. So it's a new space, a new set of challenges. Are our law enforcement entities ready for it? I don't think so. They have been forced to deal with individual grievances and complaints, which is the real problem that I acknowledged at the beginning. But they've also been turning to existing laws of the country, including provisions of the Penal Code, for doing that. And there have been some successful prosecutions. For example, in February 2022, the Mahiyangana magistrate gave a ruling that imposed 18 months of imprisonment with hard labor to an offender who released doctored images, sexually explicit doctored images of an estranged girlfriend or a lover. Now, this kind of thing, which is called revenge porn, so people they exchange intimate photographs or even videos when they
Yeah.
have a relationship, and then when
Yeah.
they fall out, one party unilaterally, absolutely without the consent of the person concerned, releases this, leaks this online. This is not so much on social media, but in other web spaces, because social media platforms have very quick automated ways of now weeding out such content that cannot remain more than a few minutes. So, revenge porn has already been successfully prosecuted, and an offender has been punished. There have been other cases in recent years. That is one of the offences in the online safety bill as well. I don't think anyone will object to that offence or that being a punishable crime. But when it comes to citizen expressions, whether it is, take for example satire and parody. Now this bill is totally silent on the matter of satire and parody. Now we know that when people engage, the creative people engage in satire, they make fictitious scenarios and present it as if it really happened. Whether it's Block and Dino, whether it is Pusvedilla, or whether it is News Curry or somebody else, they have that creative license. Now, under this online safety bill, which does not have an exemption for satire or parody, those who do satire and parody could be also making an offence, and then they could be punished, and there are serious fines and jail terms that can be imposed.
So right now, if somebody under this bill, if somebody was to write some satire or parody, what would happen? Would they get arrested?
That will depend. That will depend for us on two things. One is, will this draft go ahead as is with so many overbroad provisions and vague definitions and certain omissions, or if it is improved, will that give clear and specific exemptions for satire and parody? It's one of the requests we made to the minister at the first meeting itself. But supposing this goes ahead in with the current wording, yes, the publication of a fictitious scenario that is clearly satire can be deemed as an offence under impersonation. For example, pretending to be some other person, which is mentioned in the bill.
Again, that has to be very deeply worrying.
So, on the face of it, this is possibly trying to outlaw fake accounts, which is a growing problem in social media. But then again, there are some very legitimate reasons for not concealing your true identity. We don't know who writes News Curry, and News Curry writes some pretty explosive social commentary through satire. Conceivably, some of these people who are at the butt end of the News Curry jokes can take serious offense if the real identity were known. So, therefore, not all satirists, some write under their own names, but satirists, whistleblowers who expose acts of corruption, they need to be anonymous or pseudonymous online, otherwise their lives could be in danger. Then there are human rights defenders who, by the very nature of their subject, sometimes cannot be appearing under their own identities. And of course, in a country like ours, which has stigmatized LGBT community, the LGBT community members often cannot appear online under their own identities. So, they have a right to using the internet, but they often do it under pseudonyms. So, all these are ignored by insisting that everyone must only appear online under their true single identity. So, satirists could be in trouble.
Maybe the two of us could be in trouble as well, because we may be criticizing the government, and that's not, sometimes they don't like it, do they?
Yeah, so again, it's not clear, because they say somewhere that opinions in good faith are not an offense. But then the key words are in good faith. So, if somebody were to say that you and I are having a public conversation and that we did so with malicious intent, we'll have to prove otherwise, or it will be impossible to prove that we had done it in good faith, because after all, who can creep inside anybody's mind and determine the real intent? So, this is unenforceable at one level because of such provisions. Good
Do you
faith.
think, I don't want you to preempt what the Supreme Court may or may not say, but do you think on the face of it, when you look at some of these affidavits or petitions that have gone to the Supreme Court on this matter, is that sufficient? Are we pressing the right buttons?
On the matter of freedom of expression, which is of course not an absolute right, certain justified proportionate restrictions apply. The Constitution itself has stipulated those, but on freedom of expression, this, in the view of many like myself, restricts disproportionately, restricts unreasonably. So, in a country at this point in time, with elections coming up in the next year or two, we need the widest possible range of speech rights or the right to free expression, and not have any unfair restrictions. And this is vital at any given time, but especially when we have to discuss the merits and demerits of our politicians and our political system. So, I am hopeful that on free speech grounds, on the very clear restrictions, unfair restrictions on freedom of expression that the online safety bill has in its current formulation, the learned judges, the justices will find this unacceptable in its current form, but of course we can't preempt it. The other point I want to highlight for us is there are 3 sections in this bill. Section 15 says 3 sections that concern religion, which is a very sensitive subject for many Sri Lankans. So, section 15 says disturbing a religious assembly or a gathering through something that is unlawful, disinformation or untrue. The next section 16 is wounding religious feelings of a person through a falsehood, and the 17th section is outraging religious feelings of a class of persons, again through a false statement. So, disturbing a religious assembly, wounding religious feelings of a person, and outraging religious feelings of a class of persons. Now, these 3 taken together, some have argued, some like Tisarani Gunasekara have argued that they are effectively a blasphemy law, which this country does not have explicitly, but these 3, if they go ahead, it will be impossible to discuss or critique anything to do with religions, because somebody can take offense, somebody can say it hurt or wounded their feelings, outraged their feelings, religious feelings. Therefore, any public discussion or even a private discussion online to do with religions will effectively be impossible. Is that the kind of society we want?
I see. Thank you very much for your questions, which somebody sent some days ago. But I'd like to ask you that question. What happens, it says here, what happens when there's a Facebook post or a YouTube posting in which the information is blatantly wrong? What happens then?
If it is affecting national security, public health or public order, there are certain areas where freedom of expression is justifiably restricted, and if on those grounds, on those macro grounds, a falsehood has been uttered, then under the, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but speaking to legal professionals, what I gather is that under existing laws of the land, falsehoods can be dealt with. Rumors, unsubstantiated claims can all be dealt with, whether online or offline.
Is there a grave danger that all our desires to be free and be able to discuss and fix the world's problems, sat with your friends and so on, could this online safety bill, and if you share it online, your thoughts and processes and so on, will that become gravely risk taking on the part of these innocents who've been talking about it?
Yeah, so the bill as currently drafted could have an ongoing chilling effect on everyone who chooses to make any comment, share a post, or even like or dislike or react to something that they see online. Because in other countries where similar laws have been introduced, people have been charged, prosecuted, and even jailed for as simple acts as liking a post or a comment where there was something very controversial. So by association, people can be charged. So this is, as you say, this is going to get everyone very concerned. There will be a lot of self-censoring of online expression, and maybe that is the intended effect, the ongoing chilling effect on citizen expressions, because everyone will play safe, and the necessary critiquing, challenging of authority, and the critiquing and ridiculing of public figures may be vastly reduced, and in an election year to vote.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Nalaka Gunawardene. Thank you very much for being on the program. But as I leave you, I suppose the people of Sri Lanka, resilient as we all are, will certainly not take this lying down. And as we speak, I suppose people are already petitioning the Supreme Court, and we wait with grave trepidation and hope that the Supreme Court, at least, they will put matters right and put these people in their place. Thank you very much, Mr. Nalaka Gunawardene.
Thank you, Faraz.
Thank you. And that's the way it was. Take care. Have a great evening as much as you can. And God bless you all.